Good evening. I'm Joel BRUMM, Public Information Officer with Northwest Team 12 on the Bedrock and Salmon fires. This is our virtual community meeting. Tonight we'll have a chance to hear from our incident meteorologist, fire operations, smoke report, and we'll also hear from our agency administrators. During the meeting, you'll have an opportunity, as we're talking, to submit questions in real time, which I encourage you to do. We'll answer what questions we can in the chat, and we will get to the other questions at the end. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to our incident meteorologist.
Good evening, Bob Tobin, Incident Meteorologist, Team 12. I grabbed all the temperatures from around the area today, and then we check them to see what happened yesterday. Today was supposed to be the warmest day of the week, and we got the smoke in here, kind of filtered things out a little bit. Although Eugene still got to 100, we only got into the low to mid 90s. I took a look I didn't look much south, but I did look north up towards the Portland area. There are a lot of places up there that were well into the hundreds. Washougal hit 110. There's a lot of places 105, 108. It was hot, but not so hot here, and that was because of the smoke. And so we were, 5 to 6 degrees cooler than what we were yesterday at this time, and we should have been 3 or 4, and that's all due to the smoke that we had over us. Give me the next one. I also like to put the relative humidities on here too. We were in the 20 to 30% range. We thought they'd be down in the teens. Again, that had to do with the cooler temperatures because of the smoke, and we are actually a little bit higher than what we had yesterday. We thought we'd be down in the 15% range, again, due to the smoke. Give me the next one. And here is a video of that smoke. We've got the Lookout Fire up here, and we've got the Bedrock Fire here, and all the winds above the smoke layer, about 10,000 feet or so, is all easterly, northeasterly to southeasterly, pushing all that smoke off over the ocean. But it's filling in the whole area down here, keeping a cap on everything as far as weather goes. All right, so here's a satellite picture that we get from the University of Washington. And what I use this for is to find out where highs and low pressures are. And we're looking at a kind of a weak ridge of high pressure over the area. That's what brought the heat into our area the last couple of days. It's going to be with us for another couple of days, so we're going to stay very, very hot. And then this is the remnants of an old tropical storm that's pushing moisture up out of old Mexico up into California, and will eventually through the week make it up into into Oregon. Then if we look out into the Gulf of Alaska, we've got a deep low pressure system. All these things are going to come into play by the end of the week. Go ahead and give me the next one. All right, so in conjunction with the Weather Service office in Portland, we have issued a heat risk or excessive heat warning for our area. And tomorrow they've actually decreased the temperature from what we had in there due to the smoke, but still 97. And the big reason is because these low temperatures in the 60s, mid 60s to 70, which just doesn't allow people, whether they're working on the fire or even at home without air conditioning, to get any relief, and it tends to stress them out quite a bit. So we're in the extreme area here in Fall Creek and Lowell's, right on the edge of it, and this is something that really affects people negatively over a period of time. And that's going to last out till Thursday. We also have a red flag warning going over our area right now for fire concerns, and that's due to high temperatures, low relative humidity, Haines 5, which is an instability term, excuse me, an instability term, which means that the instability is very high. And then we also have these gusty winds switching from both northwest to southeast throughout the day. Go ahead and give me the next one. All right, so as we get out later into the week, we're going to see that Gulf of Alaska low pressure system drop down over the top of us, and we're going to merge with that tropical depression off the coast. That's going to pump up more moisture, and right now it's looking that by the end of the week we'll be maybe even below normal temperatures here across the Pacific Northwest. Should give us a fairly decent shot of rain by then as well, and we'll go back to what our normal temperatures would be, or maybe even cooler than normal. Go ahead and give me the next one. I do this for the operations people, for the fire behavior analyst, and for the safety people. Put out a matrix of what I think the weather's going to do the next 5 to 7 days. Areas that have the red on it show extreme burning conditions, and of course if you get down into the green, you got moderate burning conditions. And so we're in this area. This is why we have that red flag. We've got very warm temperatures, very warm overnight lows. We've got gusty winds, both out of the southeast at night, coming around to the northwest during the day. We also have very dry relative humidities, and we have that instability term here of Haynes 5, which shows very unstable atmosphere. All this together makes it an ideal condition for burning. So we put out a red flag warning to highlight this, those 2 days for us. That's going to go out through Wednesday. As you can see, as we go out to the week, temperatures start cooling down, relative humidities start coming up, and that should take care of some of our potential fire behavior problems that we've had the last couple of days. End of report.
All right, good evening. I'm DEANA Wall, and I'm here for Operations Section Chief on the salmon and bedrock fires. Starting with the salmon fire, this fire has been going on and has been in great status here with a lot of containment on most of the fire, and really at this point in time is in a patrol status with minimal staffing to allow for maximum opportunity to utilize that staffing where we need it. And along this 24 road all the way up to the 2409, we've had an equipment operation going on in that road system as well, and we are looking to wrap that up. Actually, by end of shift today, we will have that complete. All right, moving on to the bedrock fire. I'm going to start on the back of what we call the boot. I think you'll see why. This is the southern end of the fire, and moving towards the bottom of the boot and all the way around the boot, this is the area that we call Sierra Yankee. Of course, we name all the parts of the fire. If you notice that on any of our maps, this is Sierra Yankee. This is the area that represents a lot of great containment on our fire. Moving out of Sierra Yankee into what we call Oscar, this area has been secure and is really in patrol and mop-up only as needed status. And that continues all the way through Oscar, frankly, and into Division Lima, which represents the northeast side of our fire. And continuing on the 1832 road of Lima, things continue to look secure and really, and again, in a monitor and mop-up as needed status. We have had a burn operation at the top northeastern corner of our fire in Lima. That has occurred over the course of the last 3 operational periods. We wrapped up that burnout operation along the fire lines yesterday, and today we spent our operational period here in the middle of the fire, introducing more fire into the middle so that we could get greater depth on our secured line. That's all looking really good. We had favorable winds for those conditions for burning, and we're looking to continue mopping up and securing that fire line over the course of the next operational periods. Moving into Juliet, this is another area of the fire, the north end of the fire, that has been mostly in a secure and patrol and mop-up status as needed. This has all been looking very good for many days now. That moves us into Division Alpha, and the northern end of the Division Alpha, all the way down to what we call drop point 12, has been burned out probably between 3 and 5 operational periods ago now, which means this area is now looking very secure. We are mopping up and patrolling that as needed. Moving down from what we call drop point 12 into the southeast portion of our fire, this is a portion of Alpha and a portion of Sierra Yankee is where recently we've been having some containment issues. You heard the conversation from the IMET about the shift in winds and the hot and dry conditions. So with that shift in winds to an easterly flow, sure enough, the shape of our fire tells you where that fire has been going as a result. And so this represents the area where we've been having trouble containing the fire, and we've had a lot of spots out ahead of the fire. With that, today's operational period and into the next coming days, we are continuing to find those opportunities for us to contain this fire using the road systems as we can, certainly going direct where we can, and mostly identifying the areas where we can securely contain this side of the fire while keeping our firefighters safe. And that brings you all the way to the corner of that boot I was talking about at the beginning of my briefing. And in addition, I just want to make sure and mention that we have a lot of great resources assigned to looking at the opportunities for contingency planning, as well as we've been in great coordination here at the Big Fall Creek community, working with Oregon State Fire Marshals and a number of different task forces assigned to this area. And as you all know, there's a level 3 evacuation here in Big Fall Creek community. And the task forces, as well as some of our resources assigned to that area, continue to do great structure protection work to protect those areas in the event that the fire makes it to Big Fall Creek community. And I think that completes your operational briefing.
Good evening. I'm Linda Chappell, and I'm the Air Resource Advisor for the Bedrock Fire. We have new Air Resource Advisors coming in to cover the Lookout Fire in the next shift or two. Until then, I'll be covering both of those fires. As you saw from the video earlier, that smoke is fairly intermingled already. As we know about smoke, as it's produced, it moves high into the atmosphere, and then as it cools, it comes back down again. In this case, we haven't had a lot of strong winds. We've had variable winds, and so those came back down, and they're starting, you can see here, they're moving off the coast, but we're starting to get those smoke cooling down and coming to the surface tonight. So starting last night in Salem, about 11 o'clock, we started to see moderate conditions. Those are still not desperately concerning. We are getting into unhealthy down in Oak Ridge, and we're going to continue to see that same activity. It's going to continue to sink. So tomorrow, the good news is relatively good air quality east of the Cascades. It's not reaching that way. The winds are coming northeast, east, northwest. And then denser smoke continues in the later afternoons and early evenings. We've got an air quality advisory out for Eastern Lane County. We're meeting in the morning to reevaluate that. I suspect that that may develop into something more. And as I said, look for our air quality advisories on fire.airnob.gov. We'll have both the Bedrock and the Lookouts up in the next couple of days, and tomorrow will be a combined one. Thanks.
Hey, good evening. I'm MARIAH Rawlins. I'm an Assistant Chief Deputy with the Department of State Fire Marshal. So OSFM has been engaged in conversation and planning around this fire since we became aware of it in July. And last night, based on weather and potential, we were able to bring a task force in to kind of do some assessment in the Big Fall Creek area and then ultimately pre-position them overnight. OSFM doesn't have our own firefighters. Our mission is to protect lives and structures, so we do that through the Oregon Fire Mutual Aid System. In this case, that's structural firefighters from around the state that can mobilize to assist Oregonians in time of need. Today we have 4 task forces assigned to the fire. That's 56 firefighters from around the state, all local agencies, so from Sutherland all the way up to Hillsborough. Today we've been, as you heard, working hand in hand with our wildland crews, doing structure triage and prep and kind of making the structures as defendable as possible. I did want to thank local Fire Chief Lon Drott and Northwest Team 12 for the great partnership, and OSFM stands ready to assist this team and your community as necessary. Thank you.
Good evening, Molly Julera. I am the agency administrator on the Forest Service side, and I'm the local district ranger here on the Middle Fork Ranger District. I'm really grateful for a few things. The partnerships we've had with the state, with BLM, and now OSFM have really led us to have a lot of good success on some parts of this fire. Our number one value is our communities, and so a lot of people have been working really hard on that western side of the fire in really tough conditions, and so I really thank the firefighters out there, and I'm also really grateful for the community for your support. The firefighters feel it, and we appreciate it.
Good evening. My name is Dave Lorenz. I'm the Deputy Agency Administrator for the Oregon Department of Forestry. ODF's been involved in this fire with the Forest Service from very early on, and our main areas of concern have been trying to keep the fire off from private land, and when it does get onto private land, to try to minimize the acres burned while always providing for firefighter and public safety. I really appreciate the work of and the coordination with Team 12, as well as all of our coordinators and partners. And in particular, I want to actually thank all of our forest operators and large forest landowners who've provided a lot of essential equipment to the fire effort and completed a lot of critical work on the fire. So thank you.
Good evening. Dennis Teitzel, District Manager for the Northwest Oregon District with the BLM. Following the other agency administrators is a hard act, but just to reiterate our priorities: safety, public, firefighters, protection of personal property, and we are in alignment there and we are working together. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm Jeff Bouchorn. I'm IC trainee with Northwest Team 12. Just wanted to start first with thanking you guys hosting us here in your community. Northwest Team 12 has been in place for a little over a week now. Really appreciate all your efforts and your support. Things have been going really great for us. A week ago when we started in this fire, we came in under a delegation of authority from the Forest Service, Oregon Department of Forestry. Just recently joined the Bureau of Land Management once their lands became threatened by the fire. We've been working in close coordination with those agencies. Just yesterday bringing in the Oregon State Fire Marshals to help us protect the private lands and structures to the west of the fire, and then certainly the Lane County Sheriff's Department and the Lowell Fire Department have been really great to us. Appreciate all those partnerships. Last week has been going, pretty well. It's been really successful for us. You heard during the operations update about how much of the fire is looking really, really good. It's the west side that's being a little problematic for us right now. We're working on putting all those plans in place to protect your communities. The biggest thing and our biggest challenge is ensuring in that tough ground out there in the big timber and the steep slopes is keeping our firefighters safe. Our overall goal is to minimize the amount of acres burned. We're certainly trying to keep as much of the fire as possible on national forest lands and reduce impacts to your communities. So one thing I would like to note, there was a question that came into the chat before I forget to address that, was if more homes are threatened, will more resources be allocated to the fire? And the answer is yes. In partnership with the Oregon State Fire Marshal, if we have more structures threatened, we'll be working closely with them to bring in more structure protection task forces to integrate with our folks there on the ground, provide the structure protection that we need. With that, I'll go ahead and wrap things up. Again, thank you for your support. Appreciate you guys being here tonight, and we'll open it up for questions.
Thanks, Jeff. I think we had a question about the forecast models that, okay, I'm not sure if this was weather forecasting or fire operations forecasting, but Bob, do you want to?
Forecast models.
Okay.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so there's a bunch of places to find forecast models out there that are open to the public. The one that I use a lot is the University of Washington. They have a very, very good site. There's a place called Tropical Tidbits. You got to kind of go search for it. There's the College of DuPage. That's the one I got the satellite pictures of from. That is a really good one. A lot of people use that one because they're all very, very simple. The National Weather Service has a lot of different model data that you can get that I use quite extensively. I use Radar Scope for radar data. That some of these you have to pay for, like the Radar Scope is like $10 a year, which is cheap, and it's got a lot of good data. Some of the model data you have to buy from vendors. A lot of it is open to the public domain. You just got to search around. There's a bunch of different places. So I hope that answers your question.
All right, me again, DEANA Wall. I've got a question here about our fire maps. and why they don't show the spotting shown on satellites. So great question, appreciate that. I just would iterate that this is a map that was printed out. I'll just go ahead and use today's map as a point of example. So this was printed out today and represents what we knew about the fire at 7 o'clock this morning. And those satellite feeds that you all might have access to are more up to date than the 7 o'clock map from this morning that we're using. So a lot of times we're just operating off of the most recent and best information that we have that we can verify and confirm with the resources that we have available on the fire. And at the same time, we're printing maps out as best as we can to keep up with that current information. And we're always validating and confirming that information with our folks on the ground. So today was an interesting day. We had a lot of smoke over the fire. And we continue to get in there where we can and see what it is that we can and verify the information we have. Anyone else want to say anything about that? Oh, and the influence of the column. Okay, thanks for that. So yeah, the satellite information that you all are getting, there's a whole lot of other things. There's a reason I fight fire, and it's because there's a whole lot smarter people than me. The smoke column and a whole lot of other things influence the data and information that you're receiving from that satellite.
DEANA, I think we have another question for you. If there are more, if they're more of a threat to larger towns, will we get more air support for the fire?
Okay. That feels like maybe in concert with my incident commanders, and I'll say yes. Yes, the answer is yes. Because the first part of the question was what?
If there's more of a threat to large towns, will we
more
get more
yes.
air support?
Yep, same as the previous question, yes. With more threat, we would conceivably have access to more resources as it relates to the priority of this fire versus other fires across the region and across the country.
Okay, Jeff Bouchard, I see again. One of the questions to address is how are evac levels determined? To be clear, the evacuation levels, Northwest Team 12 works in coordination with the Lane County Sheriff's Department. We make recommendations to the sheriff about what we think from a fire behavior standpoint based on rate of spread, the fuels, our success in the fire suppression efforts out there, and then work closely with them to basically recommend a level of evacuation for a given area. Recognize when we put evacuation levels in place, we really want to do that very early. Everything we do with the evacuation levels, we want to try to reduce any panic or concerns and try to make that any evacuations pretty orderly. That's why they work in an order. We typically put them in place at a level 1, and that's a notice that there's a fire in the area. You need to be prepared. And then the level 2 is you need to pack your stuff and be ready to go. Make sure you've taken all of your documents, you've taken all your medications, all the stuff that's really significant to you in your house. And then, so that way you're really ready to go. Once level 3, that means go comes, you can just jump in your vehicle, take your animals, do what you need to do, and get out of town, and leave it to the firefighters to work on protecting your residences out there.
Thank you, Jeff. We have a question. How many structures have been lost?
Yeah, at the beginning of the fire, before Team 12's arrival, there were 2 structures that were lost. None of them were primary residences. They were outbuildings, and nothing else currently has been lost since that time.
Do we know the cause of the fire yet? It's still under investigation at this time. We do have a tip line. Do we have that line with us right now? Otherwise, okay, we can get it. Are there more questions at this time? No. What I will say is that if you do have, excuse me, if you do have more questions, you can call us, or if you have tips, you can contact the Public Information Shop at 541-414-6272, or you can email us at 2023.bedrock@firenet.gov, and we'll be happy to help you. Thank you, and good night.